This is Gina of Gina's Gem Creations, a beading tutorial channel here on YouTube that I started about 3 years ago. That channel caters to moderate to advanced level beaders, though there are many beginner level subscribers. So I have chosen to start this new channel to cater to these beginners in an attempt to answer common questions asked and to create requested basic beading stitch tutorials. Today we're going to start with discussing seed beads, as they are the common source of confusion for newbies. You must first learn the beads, the terminology, the brands, materials in order to acquire these things needed to begin your new hobby. We will do a series of numbered videos that will address the materials needed, then move into basic beading stitches. Today is all about seed beads, sizing, brands, shapes, and uses. Let's start with the discussion about commonly used sizes of seed beads. So what I have here in front of me is a paper that has the different sizes of seed beads that are most often used. You can see here I have a 15-0, an 11-0, an 8-0, and a 6-0 seed bead. The O stands for aught. Aught is a unit of measurement that when these beads are laid side by side, up like this, next to each other, how many it takes to make an inch. Now, I don't find that that's always true in sizing because each brand tends to vary a little bit different in size. So, that is what the O stands for. The smaller the number on the top over the O, the 6-0, the bigger the bead, obviously. The 6-0 is bigger than the 15-0. 15-0s are most generally, though, as I said, they can vary from brand to brand, 1.3 millimeters in size. An 11-0 is generally 1.8 millimeters in size, an 8-0 is generally 2.5 millimeters in size, and a 6-0, 3.3 millimeters in size. What I have in front of me are Toho seed beads. Now there are several brands. Toho is just one brand of seed bead. There are categories that I like to put my seed beads in. In my own mind, I categorize them as Japanese seed beads, Czech seed beads, and yucky seed beads. These three categories directly apply to the quality of the bead. Japanese seed beads are my number one category because they are the best. They are the most uniform in size and shape, and they have very nice finishes, and they tend to make a more beautiful piece of work. And they are the ones that most people prefer to work with. The brands are Toho and Miyuki. In front of me, like I said, I have Toho. Toho and Miyuki are often debated because a lot of people believe that Miyuki is the only seed bead you should ever use, ever, which is not true. Tohos are just as high quality. The difference between the two brands is this. Tohos are more affordable, and they are a little bit bigger than Miyukis. Miyuki tend to be smaller, as I said, and some of the finishes aren't quite as permanent as some of the Toho finishes. Now, I've heard that the other way around, but in the galvanized line in Toho, they have permanent finish galvanized seed beads, which do not lose their finish. And I'm talking mainly metallic finishes, because a lot of beaders will find that the finish wears off. They do not in Toho, if you get the permanent finished line. Now, the other difference between them is just personal preference. Some people think that Miyuki are more uniform and are higher quality. Miyuki are uniform with themselves. Toho are uniform with themselves. If you mix them together, that's when the discrepancies happen, because Toho have a bit of a bigger hole and they are a little bit larger in diameter than Miyuki is. So if you're doing a piece of work that needs very consistent sizing of beads, perhaps a pattern in peyote, then if you mix Tohos and Miyukis together, you are going to find that your pattern isn't completely uniform, because Toho seed beads are larger than Miyuki. But if you use only Tohos in your pattern, all of 15 O's or 11 O's or whatever, you're going to find that they are consistent with themselves. If you use all Miyuki, you will find that they are consistent with themselves. So that is where the size discrepancy comes in, is when they are mixed. However, I want to put this right out there. It is not a bad thing to mix brands of beads. You can do it. You can also exchange one bead for the other in pattern. So if a pattern calls for Toho, of course you can use Miyuki. You just have to keep in mind the size difference, and you may have to add or subtract a seed bead in your design as you're picking them up onto your needle to thread over to the next stitch. And that can be adjusted, and that is easily adjusted as you become more advanced and you understand how the beads work. Then you will be able to switch out even sizes of beads for other sizes, upsize, downsize a piece. But that will be a later discussion. Right now we're just going to stick with the seed beads. I'm going to show you the difference. This is a Toho 15-0 seed bead. I'm going to get out a Miyuki. And it is very hard to see the difference until it's in a piece, and then you can see it very easily. Let me just place a Miyuki right here, and yeah, it's just one. And then I'm going to put my Toho 15-0 right here, and then we are going to zoom in on this and see if you can see the difference in these two beads. I'm going to get as close as I can and try not to blur here. Let me move these over. This is the Toho, and this is the Miyuki. So you can see, let me get in just a little bit closer if I can. You can see there is a slight difference in size between the two. Tohos tend to have more bulk horizontally, so the Miyuki is a little flatter, a little bit shallower bead. However, they're pretty close, so it is hard to see on screen, and if you don't see the difference, that's okay. Just take my word for it. Tohos are bigger than Miyukis. And then when you do a pattern, you will see the difference in the two beads. Now, the other difference with Japanese seed beads is that there is also tubular seed beads. There are round, regular seed beads, and then there are tubular beads, which are called delicas in the Miyuki line, and Toho's line is treasures. Now the difference in a round seed bead and a tubular seed bead is pretty easy to see. And I will get out a delica here. This is an A-dot delica, 8-0 seed bead. Oh, that isn't. Wasn't in the package. There is a delica right there. And I am going to get you where you can see it because I am zoomed in and you can't see it. This is a delica. Now, the delica, I'm going to put it on something so you can see it. The delica is tubular. It's like a pipe that was just cut, just a section of pipe. So it doesn't curve in. The sides aren't rounded. They don't curve in, so they are not considered a round seed bead. They are considered a tubular seed bead. That is what makes a delica different from, let's say, a round seed bead. You can see the difference right there. They are meant to lay next to each other very nicely in, say, peyote. Something where the beads lay right next to each other, not edge to edge, but side to side. So let's get another bead here. side to side. Yeah, I'm using paper instead of a bead mat, guys, so that you can see better. But if you're doing a pattern like peyote, where they're laying on their sides next to each other, tubular seed beads are ideal. So herringbone or peyote, they're a must because they make your piece much prettier. It's a lot less frustrating. They are very uniform, so they go together very nicely. And that's what you would use a delica in. Let's look at a treasure. I have smaller treasures here. No, that's a Miyuki. Let's find a treasure seed bead and compare the difference between a Toho treasure to a Miyuki delica. Treasures are the tubular beads from Toho. These are 8-0s, these are 11-0s, so they're much smaller. And let's get close. Actually, those might even be 6-0s in Miyuki. I think they are actually 6-0s. So let's get a little closer here. There is a treasure. And let me get the same size of, bunch of them. This is the same size of the Miyuki in a delica right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera over and I'm going to zoom in a little and I'm going to move these center stage here. So I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way and put these right here so you can see them. So there is not a lot of difference. Toho is a little bit bigger than the Miyuki. Let me get a different one. I think I broke that one. Let me get a different one. Right there. And when I mean bigger, basically they're a little bit wider. And let's put it next here. In the delicas, they're pretty close. So you can see the difference there. That one, I think, is an off size in Miyuki. See, it does happen. But that is what normally they look like right there. So you can see the Toho is a little bit bigger than the treasure. Not much. A little bit taller, a little bit thicker on the sides. So that is the difference in the Toho treasures and the Miyuki delicas. And with the Tohos, I find they're a little bit more difficult to use, not because of the bead themselves, but because of the way they're sized. Tohos are treasures numbered like number 1, 2, and Miyukis are in the 8-0, 11-0, 6-0 type of thing. So I am more familiar with 11-0s, 15-0s. I know in my mind how big that bead is basically going to be when I'm going to design a project. So I prefer to use Miyuki because of the sizing. With the Toho treasures, I have not delved into it deeply enough to figure out exactly what size I want with what number. And so I stick with Miyuki when I'm going to use a tubular seed bead. It is all just a game of preference more than anything else. Now let's look at some Czech seed beads. So in Czech seed beads, this is an 8-0, so we'll put it under the 8-0. They are a little less uniform than the Japanese seed beads. They can be a lot less uniform if you get a really cheap type, like at a hobby store or something. But if you get Jablonex, or I think that's the name pronounced, this is the brand that I have been using. They're really good. They're pretty consistent. They're really nice seed beads, and I do like them. They are usually pretty consistent. but they can be inconsistent, and that's why Japanese seed beads are ranked above Czech seed beads in my mind, because I don't have to cull them. Culling them means going through them and pulling out the beads that are inconsistent. So you try to keep the beads that are consistent with each other and take out the beads that are not. And you can do that before you start to bead, or you can do that as you're beading. And I usually do it as I'm beading because I don't have the patience to sit and cull all my beads beforehand. So that is the difference between Czech and either Toho or Miyuki. They're just not quite as consistent. And this is an 11-0, or that's an 8-0, excuse me, and this is a 6-0. Let me get an 8-0 and show you a comparison. Let me find an 8-0 in Czech here. So this is an 8-0 Toho. This is an 8-0 Czech. There is a big size difference between Czech and Toho. You can see them right away that the Czech is shorter. Tohos tend to be taller beads. Now, if I can turn these on their side so you can see them a little better, you could, but they won't stay up on their side. So let me see if I can hold them up. Because the height of them is the big difference. So you can see how much wider there that the Toho is than the Czech seed bead. And that's consistent all the way across the board from 15 O's up to 6 O's. They are just bigger. So when I use a 15-0 Toho, it's about the same size as a Czech. Or excuse me, when I use 11-0 Toho, it's about the same size as a Czech 15-0. So sometimes I will just substitute out if I need another color that I don't have in Toho and I do have in Czech. I will just downsize or upsize whichever direction I need to go. So if I need an 11-0 in Toho, I will grab an 8-0 in Czech. If I need to go with my 11-0. If I need to have a 15-0 in Toho, I will grab an 11-0 Czech, and so on and so forth. So that is the difference in the sizes. That's what most people are harping on about when they talk about inconsistency in sizes and quality of beads. And it is a good thing to invest in Japanese seed beads or a quality Czech seed bead. It will save you a lot of heartache and frustration because your pieces will just turn out a whole lot better. And your beadwork will go together a whole lot easier if you invest in good seed beads. This is my third category of seed beads. Crappy seed beads. Or, no, I don't like to call them crappy seed beads. That's a phrase someone else coined, and I don't like to use that. I call them my yuck beads because look at that. This is a 6-0 seed bead, and it is long and strange shaped. Here's another one that's kind of round. And let me put it on here. This one's kind of round, kind of pretty. But then you're sewing along and you put that one in, and then your beadwork is all weird and off balance because your beads are really different sizes. That is the yuck category of cheap seed beads. These are the seed beads you'll find in Walmart or some hobby stores and stuff. If they are not a brand like Czech or Japanese seed beads, this is usually what you end up with. And they are difficult to work with. Now, they do have their uses. There's no such thing as a bad bead. I do not like when I hear people discriminate against beads. It's just silly. They're all pieces of glass. So you can use these for different things. There are some projects that I will show you that you can use these for, infringing and things where you want a little bit of inconsistency for texture and interest in the piece. You can still use them. So don't get really upset if you bought some and you think you have to throw them away. You do not. They can be used. It's just that if you're going to do stitches like a herringbone or a peyote or a right angle weave or something like that, you don't really want to use these seed beads because your piece just won't look nice. And sometimes the beads won't go together the way they're supposed to because of the inconsistencies. So there you have the difference between Japanese seed beads, Czech seed beads, and Toho seed beads. And what you should invest in would be Japanese seed beads. The most expensive is Miyuki. Toho is very affordable, and Czech is even more affordable than Toho. So if you cannot afford the most expensive seed beads, there is no reason on this green earth that you could not use a different brand. The bias about the seed beads are just in the fact that they are different sizes from each other. So don't limit yourself. Don't think that you can't bead because things are too expensive. There are different price categories, and they are just as nice, and you can make just as beautiful pieces. So that is the difference between seed beads. There are a few different types of seed beads that you might hear about, like Charlotte's. Let's go over that really quickly, and then we'll wrap this video up. This, let me zoom out. This is a strand of Charlotte seed beads. Charlotte are Czech seed beads, and they have one facet on them. So let me get close. And as you can see, these are pretty consistent in size. They're very nice beads too. So I would make a piece with this, no problem. And I will make a piece with it. I own the beads. So what you can see is one little tiny facet right there. So one side of the bead has a facet. And so what it does is, as you can see, as I back off, you can see the sparkle. And that's what Charlottes do, is they sparkle a little more because of the one facet. So as they're moving around on your piece, that little facet will catch the light and it'll sparkle a little bit. And that's what a Charlotte seed bead is, and you can get them in all different sizes. Then there are such things as square or cube seed beads. These are a Czech cube. I don't have my Miyuki ones right out here, but there is a big difference in quality in these two, as far as the finish of these aren't quite as pretty, and you can see the cut of them is off a little bit. If I can get close in on this one, you can see that the bottom of it is a little jaggedly cut. See that? So it doesn't lay in your piece as nice as perhaps a crystal cube or a Miyuki cube. These are 4mm cubes, but they're just not as uniform. So that is the difference when you start to buy shaped seed beads. But there again, here is a cube of Czech seed beads that are a little bit better. Here, they're a little bit more consistent. So you just have to shop carefully, and sometimes that's hard to do if you're shopping online. So if you don't want to take any risks and you want a really good shaped bead, then go with Japanese. So that's basically all I have to say about seed beads today, and this has run a little longer than I intended it to, so I'm going to wrap things up. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment, and I will answer your comments as soon as I possibly can. Thanks. Bye-bye.